Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Jim Ego, and we're coming at you here tonight again from the Off-Res group. We have another interview to do tonight, and excuse me, choking now. But I did want to say I was happy to be here again and glad to be able to do this, especially tonight because we have Shannon White from Lake Traverse District tonight. And so it's really a pleasure and an honor to do it. And if you don't know Shannon, then you're really missing out on knowing somebody who's really great. And if you're part of this group, the Off-Res group, and you really need to give her a big thank you because she's done a lot for setting up all these interviews and directing us a lot in what we need to do at certain times and getting those petitions signed and all the legalities that are involved. So it's really a great resource to have her on board here. So with that, go ahead, Shannon. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and maybe give us some qualifications and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. It's kind of weird to be on the other side of this. Usually I'm the one asking the questions, but I'm really happy to be here tonight. Like Jim said, I'm Shannon White. I'm from the Lake Traverse District and I'm running for council there. My Dakota name is Zikana Washdewi. I live in Russell with my fiance, Alex, and we have 3 kids and 2 dogs and a bunch of cats. My mom is Joan White. My dad is Chat Masquet. My maternal grandparents were Cyrus White and Burdell Armel. And then my paternal grandparents, wait, did I say maternal or paternal? That was my maternal grandparents. But my paternal grandparents were Mitchell Masquet and Gladys White. I attended school at Haskell Indian Nations University for 2 years. And then I transferred to the University of South Dakota, where I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice and contemporary media and journalism. I'm a super nerd, so of course I had to double major, and then in two totally unrelated things. But all those skills have really come in handy throughout my career and all the other things that I do. So I think I did good there. But after I got done with college, I came home in 2004. My grandma had cancer, and my family wanted someone to come home and take care of her and take her to all her appointments and stuff like that. So I moved home and took care of her for a year. And I was going to go to law school. That was my plan. And I had taken the LSAT. I got letters of recommendation. And then when you, I don't know if this is still how it is, but back then when you apply to law school, you have to pay this company to send these little packets of information with your test scores and all that. I paid for those, but then I put it off because I came home, and then I started working for the tribe, and I started working for this program called Injury Prevention, and I just loved it. So I stayed home. And for 10 years, that's what I did. Was I worked in injury prevention, which was a highway safety program. And I started off as the coordinator, and then I wrote a bunch of grants for my program until we were our own program. And so then I became the program manager of it. And after 10 years, the funding was running out and they weren't going to be offering the same amount. So then I decided that it was time to go back to school. And I was actually inspired by Sherry Johnson, because just like I am now, you know, I'm a doer. So I could see that there were issues like in our tribal health programs, but nobody wanted to change anything. And so I went to this, it was a program manager training, and Dr. Sherry Johnson was there, and she was talking about that. And she said that that's how she had felt too. And so she said, I decided that I was going to go get educated because I didn't like the rules, and I became educated enough to change and make the rules. And so that really inspired me. So I went to NDSU, and I enrolled in their Masters in Public Health, American Indian Public Health emphasis. And I'm one class away, one class in my master's paper, and then I'll be done and I'll have a master's in public health. Do it. Yeah. So, nice. So in my time with the tribe, I've written grants. So all through grad school, I just did consultant work. I wrote grants, I wrote policies, I wrote codes. My grant writing has brought a few million into the tribe in federal funding.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, and I've worked as a grant writer, a program evaluator, and I've worked for the Shota. And then as far as elected positions, I've been on the district election board. I was chairman of the Human Services Board, Police Commission, and then I'm currently the chairman of the Judicial Committee. So I've had a lot of experience in different areas. And also with being a regular employee and with being a program manager of the tribe. So I've gotten to see how all levels of things run. I also served on the board of Alive Roberts County, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Lake Traverse Animal Rescue, which is totally not political related, but just something I'm proud of.
Yeah.
So our animal rescue has been running for 10 years, and we've saved over 3,000 area animals. We've had spay neuter
Nice.
clinics, roundups, all kinds of different things associated with that. And probably about a year ago, I started going to tribal council meetings because I wanted to see what was going on. And a lot of times we wouldn't get information until like a month later. And then the information was very biased from our council person. And I wanted to see it in action. And it really opened my eyes about how decisions are made and the things happening in our local tribal government. So that's kind of my background.
Nice. Excellent. Excellent. Real quick question regarding the grant writing. When you worked hard on the grant and it didn't come through, was that disappointing?
Oh, so disappointing.
Right.
There was one that I wrote that I really wanted, and it was a second chance. It's called the Second Chance Grant,
Right.
and it was for reentry for people coming out of prison. And
Mm.
at the time that I wrote it, we didn't have a lot of programs and services, but now we have a lot. So the tribe reapplied for it using my basic grant as a template with just a few changes, and they think we have a really good shot. I'm really hoping that comes through because I think that would be such a great service for our people.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. I've actually only written 3 grants in my lifetime, and I'll write more, but they were all accepted. So I have no failures yet.
Oh man, yeah.
I know.
I think I
Okay,
have
but
like I want to say it's like a 90% rate.
nice.
Yeah.
Good.
So I've written a lot of
Yeah.
grants.
Yeah, yeah. I heard like the average, I know we're getting a little off topic, but I heard that the average is like 50-50 for grant writers, you know?
Really?
Yeah. So
Oh
you're doing
wow.
really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Especially like in social services and stuff like that. Yeah. It's all 50-50. So, all right, let's get going with the question. So, and of course, the first one, I think you know which one it is. This is what does transparency in tribal government mean to you? And how will you work towards transparency in tribal council if you're elected?
so to me, transparency means communication. And I
Mm,
think the pandemic that has happened to and how our tribe has responded to it has both advanced the transparency and kind of shown how much it's lacking. So because of COVID, that's why they started doing the live streams and making the council meetings available on YouTube, which I think is really great. But also, when you watch those meetings, you find out a lot of stuff there, and they make decisions without kind of any input from the people, and things happen that you just are kind of like, what is going on.
mhm,
So if you haven't been there through the whole thing, and so a lot of these issues that are coming out have been in the making over the whole administration. So it's a little bit, I think a lot of people watch it and they don't always know what's going on. And then sometimes people watch it and it's amazing that the things they get to see. And so what I was doing before was I'd go to council meetings and then I would post from the meeting. And that was okay. But the thing is that you're still getting a biased opinion. As much as I would like to say that I'm telling the truth, it's still my truth the way that I saw it. So I really like that people are able to watch those council meetings, form their own opinions, see
mhm,
the behavior of the council people. I mean, really, you just learn a lot from watching them. So what I would like to see is that expanded. There are other tribes that they record all of their boards and committees, any kind of planning meetings, things like that. And I really think that we should do that because, we're paying our boards and committees. They make they make 150 a meeting, first meeting, and 75 the second meeting. So they're getting $225 dollars to represent us, but we never get to see really what they do. So I would like to see that increased. The other thing is that I think this whole experience being involved with the off-res group has been really great for me, because I'm able to get information out there. And if I was on council, I would do the same thing. You know, I might even have regular lives to say, hey, here's what we worked on this week, or here's the issues that are coming up. Because I mean, that's all the stuff that I wanted to know as a tribal member. I just wanted to know what was going on. I just wanted information. So I really like, you know, reports and things like that, especially from our tribe, because, you know, it is my tribe. You know, I'm one of the people. So that's really what that means to me, and what I would like to see and what I could work on being on council.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you. How did you get involved, by the way, with the off-res group?
You know, it was kind of a fluke. The thing is that, like I said, like, I like to get things done. I'm really good at building programs, or, you know, I'm an on the ground type of person. So what happened is that our former chairman asked me to come to this meeting, and they were going to talk about these petitions. So I showed up to the meeting, and Steve Sandvin was there, and Michael Roberts, and Donovan White. And they started talking about the petitions, and Steve has worked with me before in judicial, and he just pointed me out in the crowd. I was wearing a mask, and he was like, Shannon, can we get you to head this? And I had already really been thinking about, you know, how can I get involved and help out? And so I was like, sure. And so then just like that, I started coordinating it. And then with the page, I had heard that something was going on there, and that they were talking about judicial. And so I joined the page, and I, you know, started posting, and that's how I became involved.
So you found us, huh?
Yeah.
Good. Nice. All right. Thank you. All right. So this next question is about racism. Do you know what racism means? I didn't write the question, by the way. It's just the way it was written. Do you know what it means? Question mark. I don't just mean from other races, but towards our own enrolled members. Why are off-reservation members such a threat? How do you plan on addressing racism within our tribe? So, and to let you know, I believe that person is referring to bicultural and multicultural members who may not appear, you know, dark-skinned, but they are feeling sort of, I think, excluded at times. And it's kind of a two-way issue, whereas people who are kind of dark-skinned sometimes perceive the biracial and multiracial ones as having kind of a white privilege appearance sometimes, and so they, you know, it can kind of go back and forth like that. You know, what does that question mean to you? How do you interpret it?
Well, this issue is really close to my heart, because I have a lot of biracial relatives and friends and close friends, and on and off res, and they're struggling with this issue. I think there's already so much division within our tribe, and even you know, division between us as Native people and the rest of the world, that I struggle to understand or comprehend, like, why we would create more division amongst ourselves. We're all Dakota, you know, so to distinguish between on and off, and blood quantum, and, you know, being biracial and all that stuff, it makes me angry, like, to be honest. I know Dakotas who have lower blood quantum that are out there, you know, rigorously teaching our language. I know low quantum or low blood quantum people who are practicing our traditional ways, you know, more than people that are full blood or almost full blood. So I think they are Dakota, whether they live here or in the city. It doesn't matter. Geographic locations don't determine how much Dakota you are. And we shouldn't be creating these divisions within our people. I just think it's totally wrong. And kind of to that end, I've been working, like I said, I'm on the judicial committee, and we recently introduced a hate crime code. So it's gone through, we had a proponent bring it in, and then we sent it out for legal review, and the next part is for it to go out to the districts. And it will make it illegal for anybody to discriminate against people for race, sexual orientation, anything like that. And we also passed a marriage equality code as well. So once we start getting back to normal, we'll be pushing that in the districts, and I'm really going to advocate for that. I have a friend that has to endure her neighbor who stands on her lawn and screams racial slurs at her, and it just kills my heart, you know? So I'm really hoping that addressing this through legislation is going to make, it's going to make a difference in stopping some of that behavior.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is there besides legislature though, because there in some cases rules kind of exist, yet people still they harbor those feelings. Do you think education sometimes can work too?
Oh, sure. I definitely think so. You know, we have our own tribal schools. We have Teoshpazina Day School, which goes up to 8th grade, I think. Or no, Teoshpazina is K through 12. And then we have Enemy Swim, which goes up to 8th grade. So, I mean, they can address those types of issues. And I think they do. I mean, the schools are really good and really positive about including different discussions. And I think that's kind of like some of the freedom of having our own tribal institutions.
Very good. All right. Let's go on to the next question. What do you think about council members who vote against their district's motions?
Okay. That one's kind of complicated for me because, you know, I want to say that they should always follow their district's motions. But when we take that oath, we agree that we're going to uphold the Constitution. So if it's a motion that goes against the Constitution or any of our codes or laws, then I would have to say that I probably wouldn't vote that way. And so, but that would be the only instance, because really when you're on council, you're representing your district and your people. So you have to listen to them. But I really think that if anybody made a motion that was unconstitutional or something, that I would just talk to them about it and let them know, you know, why it's unconstitutional or why it shouldn't move forward. But in any other aspect, you know, I'm representing Lake Traverse District, so I have to vote the way my people tell me to. But I really like rules, codes, policies, because I really think that's it's a good framework for making sure that everybody's treated fairly. So I'm kind of a rule follower. So yeah.
All right. Do you think that the person who posed that question said it because there have been instances where it did in fact happen that way, or?
Oh yeah, and in the instance of you know, when Judicial Committee went to council and they voted on the election code, which would allow mail-in ballots for all members. There were two councilmen whose districts made motions to approve it, and they voted against it. So that was a big controversy, and for me, I was so angry about that, and I ended up, I posted on my page and said, you know, named them and said, you know, you people that are constituents, you really need to look at your representative on council, because they went directly against what the people wanted.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Good point. Excellent point. Okay. So next question is about cultural preservation. Do you support cultural preservation, and specifically our Dakota language, history, artifacts, and art?
Yes. And hold on. So recently on the Off-Res page, Tamara St. John got on, and she was kind of alluding to this situation that was happening with Thippo. And I know you had commented on it too. And I was really interested. So I went to one of the councilmen. He wasn't my councilman, but I talked to one of them, and I just said, what is going on with Thippo? And he explained that Thippo, along with the Dakota Language Institute, they're both programs that generate revenue. So both of these programs made money, and Thippo had quite a bit. It was like, I want to say it was like a few $100,000, he said. And they had it put away because they were going to, they were saving money for a museum. They wanted to open our own, you know, Siston-Wapton Museum.
Nice.
Yeah, cool, right?
I'd love to see that.
Great idea. But the problem is that council ended up I shouldn't say council, it was our vice chairman, reallocated, he took all that money and he reallocated it somewhere else. And the same thing happened with Dakota Language Institute. And I remember being in that council meeting when the then program manager said, you know, we generated 90,000 this year because they have they do printing within Dakota Language Institute. And they did that because they wanted to fund more activities and, you know, more staff people to revitalize and preserve our language. And then the executives took it away and they put it somewhere else. And then we lost that program manager who was just a fierce, you know, advocate for our Dakota language. So in 2 instances, I've seen that happen, and I just totally disagree with it. It's one thing if it's a for-profit business, you know, I mean, like the bag factory, that place exists, you know, just to make money. You know, it's a for-profit business. But these 2 programs that are an example, I mean, they're not. They're really generating revenue based on, you know, this idea that they're going to further these programs. And so for council to take that away, I just totally disagree with it, because I mean, really all of that stuff, you know, our language, our history, our artifacts, our art, all of those things, those what make us Dakota. So I just think, you know, they go to, you know, the core of us as a people, and they're important to me as, like, you know, food and shelter and all of that stuff, because that's who we are. So I just totally disagree with, you know, those 2 actions. And so I would not vote in favor of that in the future.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming it was within their right to, you know, take those funds.
It was. And the councilman that I talked to said that, that when the vice chairman made the motion to take it from programs, he said that they assumed that they were going to make cuts across several programs, not that they were going to take it all from one program. So he does have a motion, you know, it's not illegal because he has a motion from council. It's just that they didn't have all of the information, is what the councilman told me.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, next question. What do you think, this is kind of an obvious one for you. What do you think of allowing voting by mail-in ballot for all tribal members?
Well,
you have to think about it. Think about that one.
Well, as all of you know, I've been an adamant supporter of the off-res vote. I've been doing the petition work. I mean, I did the work with, you know, judicial committee, trying to get an amendment before the petitions. And it kind of goes back to that whole idea of fairness, and then of just us being Dakota. You know, all of our heads are counted when they do the district distributions, when we apply for federal funding. And so I just think everybody deserves that right. I think it's actually like a violation of, you know, your rights to not be able to vote. And I know we've talked about it before, but I wish we would bring suit. You know, even if our petitions don't work, then I think that's what we should do. I think we should take the tribe to court.
I think there's rumblings, though.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say.
And I think that's really positive. You know, I think for a long time that you guys have been totally disenfranchised, and, you know, you're no less Dakota than me. So there's no reason you shouldn't be able to vote. States have mail-in ballots. There's other tribes that do mail-in ballots for everybody. And it happens, it's successful. There's not a lot of voter fraud. So I really feel like that's just an excuse when people say that. And the other thing is that sometimes off-res people are more well-informed than on-res people. I mean, look at Shady Grady, you know, I mean, man, that guy knows everything sometimes before we do on the res, you know. And also I think that sometimes off-res people see those things that are happening more clearly than we do, that are here because, you know, either we're used to living with it or we're just too close to the issue. So I really believe, I mean, I'm just a fierce advocate for off-res voting. And the other thing is, you see, I'm just gonna get on my soapbox now and just go on and on. So you better cut me off.
No, go.
Long-winded, but
not gonna stop you on this one.
Well, I just really think that our tribe needs some change. And we have these large families that have a stranglehold on our districts. And so they elect the same people over and over, and those people like things the way that they are, so nothing ever changes. And I think that the off-res vote is going to allow us to get rid of that stranglehold of just those few families that keep electing the same people. And also that with the off-res vote, I think that we can get our 30% in order to change our constitution. And we desperately need to change our constitution.
Quorum.
Yeah. So we got to have 30% of eligible voters to vote in order to change our constitution. And we haven't been able to get there since the Andy Gray days, which is like the early 2000s. So we have not been able to change anything. Our Constitution Revision Committee faithfully brings revisions every election, and we can never pass them because we can't get to that 30%.
And so, I think by including off-res people, you definitely would be able to easily.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. I mean, because there's just so many. I mean, there's way more off-res than on. So I just think that us together.
What are the numbers? Offhand? You don't have to be exact, just approximately.
I think it's 6,000 on and 8,000 off.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So there's significantly more off than there on. And I just think there's a lot of people on res that are just sick of the way things are. And if we could just join together with the off-res people, then we could make some real change.
Right.
So I'm hoping everybody votes. Please vote.
Yes. Do you think that with those people who kind of want it to remain the same, do you think it's based on a kind of fear, or is it what do you think it's based on?
I do think it's based on fear, because there's been several families in each district that have run things for so long, and so they're going to lose power. And then there's favoritism that happens, when people get into those council positions or executive positions, their families benefit. And so I don't know, I just think that if we changed all that, then there's a lot of people that are threatened by it.
Okay, great. All right, next question. It's a grocery store. It is reported that our grocery store has been losing money since it opened. The tribe has invested millions. What is your opinion on Dakota Crossings? If we were to close it, what could we use the building for, or where would we allocate those resources elsewhere?
Okay, so here's the thing about the grocery store. If you're friends with me on Facebook, then you've heard this like a million times, but I totally love our store. I like that you can go in there and you can see your relatives, you can stand in the aisles and visit. If you're me, you can take your bad kids in there. No one's going to look twice, because they got their bad kids there too. Nobody's following you around. The employees there are some of the friendliest people ever. They visit with you. You can tease and joke. I mean, like aside from old agency or agency village, I mean, it's like the most comfortable place to be a Dakota ever, because you just be yourself. You don't have to worry about nothing, So with all that being said, and I do support the store, I shop there. What I don't like about it is the amount of money that we've lost. It was opened as a for-profit, business, and it hasn't turned a profit. I mean, I've heard that we've sunk 18 million into it. And I just think like, oh man, the stuff we could have done with that money. I mean, we could have a new jail. We don't have a jail right now. And that is just impacting our people like crazy, and I mean, that was a need. We didn't need to have a grocery store. And when planning did the feasibility studies, they said it wasn't feasible to have 2 grocery stores in the same town. So all of that stuff, plus all the reported embezzlement, the mismanagement, theft, all that, it was poorly conceived. It wasn't planned very well for, and now we're 18 million less. And it hasn't been 6 months, it's been 2 years, So it's not like we haven't invested a lot of time as well as money. So although, I do love it, I just think it's a total failure. And if we close it, I think what I would really like to see is for us to build some sort of manufacturing there, because it is a large building. And one of my pet things that I really like is our hemp project. And I think we're going to talk about economic development a little bit later, but I would like to see some of our hemp manufacturing located there. I mean, it's in town. Workers could get there easily. A lot of people live in town. So I think that would be the best thing for it.
Yeah. Jobs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of jobs.
Yeah, exactly. So great. And so based on that, let's go into the next question. What ideas do you have for economic development?
So as far as economic development, I went to planning. I went paid a visit to planning because as a candidate, I felt like I should know as much as possible. So I went to planning to see what kind of, what kind of irons they had in the fire. And probably my favorite one was the hemp project. So right now we're growing hemp, and a lot of other tribes are growing hemp, but it kind of stops right there. And this really is a growing industry. So, like I said, I would like to see us get into the manufacturing part of it, especially now while everything is so new. If we could get into manufacturing of it, we'd be the first tribe to do it. And so I think it's a really good opportunity for us to get in, on the ground level of something. And we had a meeting here, and it was our tribe, and then there was a bunch of other tribes in kind of in this region that are all growing hemp. And they had this expert guy come from First Nation Development Institute, and he came and he talked about how if you're growing hemp, if you pass your code, if you get it approved, then once you get all these things in place, that you could start manufacturing, and that there would be funds available to help. And so I know that we're really close, because that's one of the things the planning director talked about. So I think that we could get in on that, and it would be like the greatest opportunity ever. And the other thing is that I'm really adamant about is that I think that our tribe needs to go Section 17. So if we change to a Section 17 corporate structure, it's going to take the politics out of our businesses. Because right now, we've had they repealed Chapter 80, which was our business code. And now our tribal council is kind of making all the decisions on our businesses. And, we've got, 10 people who don't necessarily have the education or background running what is essentially a multi-million-dollar business, the tribe and all of its, for-profit entities. And we've kind of seen like where that gets us. I mean, we had Dakota Nation Industries. I think that's what it was called. Was it Industries? I know it's DNI. Anyways, I mean, we've had like how many indictments come out of that, from stealing. And so it's not working the way that we're doing it now. Our businesses aren't really profitable, and we don't make good business decisions. And so I think the best thing to do is to go Section 17 to get a business board, and then take the politics out of it. So our board would just run all of our businesses, make all those tough decisions, and make those decisions based on business, not like personal feelings or politics or any of that stuff. So I'm really pushing for that, because I just think that's the only way we're going to be profitable.
Okay. And I just want to step back real quick. For those who may not know what Section 17 is, can you explain that?
Yep. So it's it's organizing. It's what the heck is it? I can't remember if it's BIA or what it is. I went to this training about it with Steve Stanvin, and it was so much information that day, but it's a different corporate structure. So instead of having a corporate structure that is tribally run, then what you do instead is you come up with a business board, and they can't be people, they can't be current council members. You would have a list of requirements. So maybe our list would say, well, you've got to have a master's in business administration, or you have to have run a company successfully, right, or you know what I mean? So we would come up with this list of requirements, and then we would find these people, and they're probably not going to be tribal members. Maybe one or two of them is, but for the most part, we're looking for the background and the experience in business. And then those board members, and we would choose how many, they would meet, and they would make all the decisions for our for-profit businesses. So you know, because they've got the knowledge, and they know how to handle all that. And then, like I said, it takes the politics out of our businesses. And then they would report to the shareholders. The shareholders are us, you know, us tribal members. They would report to us however we set it up. I guess it's usually annually or biannually, which we have two general counsels. So I would think they would probably report to us during general counsel, and they would take care of all of it. We wouldn't be involved.
No, interesting. All right. Well, thank you for that question, for those answers for economic development. Let's go on to the next one. One of the biggest issues coming up in this fall's election will be our decline in revenues from our 3 casinos due to the pandemic crisis. In light of the declining revenues, what programs or projects need to be reduced or replaced? Additionally, how will you make a significant difference from other candidates running against you?
Well, you know, the candidates running against me haven't released any sort of plans or anything. So I can't really say what they're doing, but I can say that I do have some ideas. I'm guessing they're not going to be that popular, but it's something that I'm thinking about and trying to work on now. And that is, it has to do with boards and committees. So we have a lot of boards and committees, and some of them have been in existence for a really long time. Like I'm thinking like the health board has been, you know, 40, maybe even 50 years, which it started as a health board and now it's the Human Services Board. But we have all these different boards and committees. They were formed when our tribe was really different than it is now. So I really think that we need to take a look at our boards and committees and decide which ones we're still getting a benefit out of, and which ones are just, you know, meeting for the stipend. And so I've been talking about this quite a bit everywhere, and I'm probably going to make a motion at my next district meeting that we take a look at those, because they're usually 7-member committees. They meet up to twice a month. They can meet twice a month. They get $150 for the first meeting, $75 for the second. So you figure that's $225 per 7 members times 12 months. So that's $18,900 per year for just one board and committee. And we have 18 listed on our SWO website, but I know we have more than that. So I just did the figures for 18. And so we're spending $340,000 on boards and committees each year. So that right there is something that I think that we could cut significantly. And there are some boards and committees
Would
that
you be cutting the participation though, as well?
Well, I think we need to eliminate some of them. So, like for example, we have different kinds. So we have some that are just advisory. They meet and the programs tell them what they're doing, and that's it. We have some that are legislative, like judicial, where it's a, you know, Chapter 21 kind of tells what judicial's duties and responsibilities are, and the work that we do. And then I'm trying to think of. Then you have like police commission, where they hear all the complaints from the police, and then they, you know, they advise the police chief. So they're all kind of different. But we need to take a look at those and figure out, you know, do we need a police commission? You know what I mean? I'm just using police commission as an example because it's the last thing I said. But, you know, take a look at it. Are we getting a benefit from it? Is it worth, you know, keeping that committee going? And I think we just need to look at all of them, because some of them were formed, you know, way back in the day before we really, before we evolved as a tribe. And so I just don't know that we need all of them anymore. And then considering that it's such a huge chunk of money, I just think that's one way that we could cut efficiently.
Okay. And let's get back to the pandemic crisis. I mean, is there anything that, what are we currently doing about that?
About the pandemic?
Yeah. How long do you think that'll go on? Huh?
Oh man, they say we're supposed to start our second wave in like October or November.
Yeah. I was
And
just reading an article yesterday about from the CDC about that.
yeah. And so I know that this kind of goes back to communication. Our vice chairman is the head of the COVID-19 task force, and they apparently have some sort of plan But the thing is that the plan hasn't been released, and I guess it's been in effect since, I don't know, whenever they formed it. They were talking about forming it in April when I was going to council meetings, but it's never been released to the people. Also, they have all this funding, and if you watch the council meeting from, I think it was Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
they asked the vice chairman if he had, something showing what they were spending that money on, and he said he was coming up with a report, but he didn't have it. So, I mean, I just think that's where we're talking about transparency and communication. And
Right.
we just don't have that good communication to know what's going on. And I just think that's such a problem, especially, I mean, we're in a crisis. I mean, this is a crisis,
Right.
people being sick. I think we've had 2 deaths on our reservation. And I mean, we need to know. We as the people, we should be able to know what's going on, or what our leaders are planning, or any of that.
Especially during this time.
Mm-hmm.
If there ever was a time, you want it to be now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So, all right, great. Um, next question. Do you have any issues that you would like to work on as a tribal council person?
Yes, I do. So I kind of talked about some of them, and talked about like our legislative policy.
Mm-hmm.
So I really would like to work on legislative policy. I'm a policy person. Like I said, I like rules. So I really think we need to spell out the duties and responsibilities of our council people. And I know one of the questions we didn't get to yet, but it has to do with stipend or salary. And I'm really of the opinion that we should go back to stipends for council if they're going to keep the legislative policy the way it is right now, because it does not say in there that they have to put in like a certain number of hours. So they don't have to come in from 8 to 4:30 if they don't want to. All it says in the Constitution is that they can't miss council meetings. If they miss 3 in a row, then it's considered abandonment of office. But it doesn't tell them that they have to be in the office. So I really do feel that the way things are right now, if they're not going to change the legislative policy, we should go to stipends for just when they're coming to meetings. But if we amend the legislative policy to require them to put in 40 hours a week, then I can see it justifying being a salaried position. And there are council people who put in the time. I mean, I don't think I've ever gone into the council suite to look for somebody and not found Lisa Jackson or Cheryl Owen or J.R. Rondell in there. Those guys are putting in the work. And I know my councilman from Lake Traverse, he's never there. He doesn't go to any of the meetings. He doesn't get the information. And when we confronted him at our district meeting, what he said was, council people do not have set hours, so I don't have to be there. And I just think that's wrong. I think the district people are really the one that suffer. We get the bad end of the stick out of our representation when our leaders aren't showing up. So that's one of my pet peeves, I should say, is that I would like to see us amend our legislative policy and make our council people be there and explain their duties and responsibilities. So and then the section 17, I'm just totally for that. I really think we need to make a change in how we do business. We need to stop the embezzling. We need to stop the mismanagement. And we just need to go to a section 17 corporate structure. But the last thing is something that I haven't been able to talk about yet, and that's IHS. So our IHS has really struggled with for years with recruitment and retention. So we have these providers that go in and out, and because they have such a hostile work environment because of the administration, we can't keep them. And we can't even, our own tribal members have a hard time hanging on to their positions there because of the administration. And our council made a motion to get rid of the CEO, Randy Jordan, Gail Williams, and Holly Rice, but they're still there. And we've had to do that. I don't even know how many times the last few years our council has to make motions to get rid of these CEOs who are so bad. And we shouldn't have to do that. I mean, and I was talking with some of my friends. I've got a friend that's belongs to MHA Nation, and I have another friend on Standing Rock. We were comparing notes, and like 3 of our CEOs, we had them in common. So like they went to Standing Rock, got kicked out of there because they did a bad job, went to MHA, got kicked out, and then they sent them to System, and we kicked them out. So why is that happening? I mean, I really think that it's not a service unit specific problem. I think it's a headquarters problem, that their policies on how they get rid of, how they handle complaints and how they get rid of disruptive employees needs to be changed. And so what I would really like to do there is to create a coalition of tribes and then go to Washington and demand some change. If we have to testify before the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs or whatever, then that's what we need to do, because this stuff has got to stop. I mean, really, there's no recourse. And you know, one of those people, she has had like 26 complaints filed on her and no disciplinary action. And there's been a couple of times where previous councils have made those motions to get rid of those employees. They detail them out and then they come right back and they're worse than ever. And so it makes it so hard for us to keep good employees. I mean, I've gone through like 3 providers this year alone, you know, because of all this stuff that's happening. So it's got to stop somewhere.
Okay, nice. All right, next question. How do you view the purpose and function of tribal council? Is it a legislative or administrative body?
Well, the executives are administrative because they oversee the various programs of the tribe, but tribal council itself, the 7 representatives, are legislative. So we're supposed to make policies, supposed to oversee that kind of stuff, approve the budgets, but we're not supposed to be interfering in the day-to-day of the tribe. And I think that that's one thing that needs to be spelled out in the legislative policy, because I think people get elected and they don't realize that. And I mean, I've sat in a bunch of council meetings where programs have come up and then they're trying to make motions about programs, but that's not their responsibility to do that. The responsibility is with the executives. So that's my answer to that.
Oh, very good. All right. Next question. It sounds a little similar, but have you read the duties and responsibilities of the council that is in the early legislative policy? And do you agree with what is written? Why or why not? Are you in favor of a written document that spells out the duties of the tribal council?
I think it's too vague. And just what I've been talking about duties and responsibilities. I mean, and it's sad that we have to tell our leaders, you know what, you should be doing this, this, and this. But really, that's what it's come to, because we have these council people who don't go to meetings or, only show up on council days or whatever. And so I do think that it needs to be amended. I think it needs to have a list of duties and responsibilities. It needs to have a requirement for how much time they put in, especially because it's a salary position and they make so much money. I mean, we should be demanding accountability for that. We should be demanding that they work a certain amount of time.
How much do they make?
I think they make, it's like 60,000 for tribal council, 60,000 a year.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. All right. So I remember reading somebody's Facebook post that said, oh, well, you just paid $30 an hour for that councilman to go out to lunch for 2 hours with his cronies, And I just remember feeling totally outraged, So that's why I keep saying, if we're just going to stay the same, if we're not going to spell out duties and responsibilities, then they should just go to stipends, because then we only pay them for their actual time.
Right. Okay. Nice. Let's see. Next question. Are you in favor of the current way that the tribal council and executives are suspended and removed from office? How would you make it a more fair, complete, and factual process?
I do not agree with it. And I just have wondered why, because there's been several people that have been removed. And most recently I can think of, Donovan White. He was removed from being the vice chairman. He was elected chairman. He was in there for a year and he got removed again. And I was like, why would you not work on this? You know, why would you not change that whole process? It's really unfair. And I think I've gone to every removal hearing for probably like the last 4 years since it's been really bad. There was only one that we were allowed into, and it was J.R. Rondell's. And I really believe that had he not been successful in keeping it a public meeting, I think they would have removed him. But because we were all there watching and having an opinion on, you know, who was testifying, the evidence that was shown and all that, I really think that's what changed it. But they don't have legal standards, you know, so you can get removed for because in the Constitution it'll say like moral issues. I mean, that is so vague. It covers so much. It can be anything. And so people get removed, and then other people try to say, well, those are bad people because they got removed. Well, not necessarily, because all you got to do is have a council that's heavily biased against one person, and they need 5 votes. So they come up with some charges, you know, they have a hearing, and then, you know, they remove them. So they're like the prosecutor, the judge, and the jury, and it's blatantly unfair. Mm-hmm. So I really think that that's one of those Constitution revisions that I was talking about that we need to change. And I don't think, I mean, if they want to bring charges up against other officials, that's fine. But I think somebody else needs to hear, you know, the charges and the evidence. And it needs to be somebody law trained and somebody not working side by side with that person every day.
Right. Okay, great. Next one, regarding the tribal constitution, are you in favor of how it is written, or do you think it should be amended, and to say what?
I do think,
which I think you've kind of answered along the way as well.
Yeah, the removal stuff. And you know, in our Constitution, it doesn't
the quorum.
It doesn't say that authorized people can't vote, and that's the whole basis for our petitions, is that we have a conflict between what our Constitution says and what our tribal code says. So I don't know if we should lower that 30% for Constitution revisions. If we had the authorized vote, I think it would be easier to get to that threshold. But you know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I mean, I have talked about a lot of it, but I just think that the other thing is, you know, when you have the Constitution Revision Committee, we were talking about this amongst ourselves, me and some of my friends, and there was a number of submissions to the Constitution Revision Committee, and at least 2 of them submitted revisions that had to do with blood quantum, and they didn't make it out of that committee. And why? So all the revisions that came out came from one tribal member. I mean, the tribal member is law trained and worked for the tribe and has really great ideas, but why did they all just come from one person? And why didn't any of the other ones make it? So, I mean, I don't know if we need to look at that, or if that's a policy change, you know what I mean? But I just think there's something a little off about that. And maybe if we had Constitution Revision Committee explaining some of it, then we wouldn't have all these questions. So again, it goes back to that communication with the people.
Right. So you're from you're running for the Lake Traverse district. And so getting back to voting for a second, what would you do to kind of enhance the voting numbers from your district? Oh, if not the whole tribe, right?
Yeah.
No, if not the whole districts. But
I mean,
how come so many have low turnouts? You know,
we've been debating that for years and years. We say maybe it's because it's on a Tuesday, or you know, maybe we should do it. I mean, we're not tied to the national election. We could change our Constitution to say when we vote. So I mean, we've discussed all these ideas, from having voting day tied with district days, or changing the voting day to a weekend. changing the polling places and having some in town or at the tribe. There's all these ideas that we could try, but we talk about them and then we end up talking about them with candidates and then it never goes anywhere. So to me, that's just frustrating. I think we do need to propose some changes so that we can increase our voter turnout. And we were talking about it on the page one night, and I had this idea of, because one of the guys that was talking on the page was saying that he doesn't have a ride, that he would love to vote, but he doesn't have a ride. But you know, every district has a van. And so every district has a coordinator. And why couldn't we just, you know, why couldn't we just say, hey, your coordinators are going to come out and give you a ride. You just got to give them a call. I mean, it's voting happens for 12 hours. It's 7 to 7. So I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of things that could be tried that just haven't been considered and only been talked about during election season.
Okay, nice. Well, if you get in there, I certainly hope that that some of your ideas for increasing the voting will work. Another one would be to ask people, you know, how come, or especially those who don't vote, how come you didn't vote? You know,
Yeah.
find out how come you didn't vote. You know, just, you know, not in an accusatory way, of course, but it more of a, you know, an information gathering way. You know, or what could we do more to get you to vote?
Yeah, you know, one time the Human Services Board, when I was on the Human Services Board, we were talking about compacting our IHS, compacting or contracting, which means we would take over either the whole unit or just individual sections of it. And so we decided, since we were studying the issue, we were getting all this information, we decided to put out a survey. And I went to Lake Traverse District Days, and I made every single one of the people that came through, when they were getting their check, they got the survey at the same time. And so we had the best turnout at Lake Traverse. We had like 500 surveys returned and everybody else only had like 50, you know? And but why couldn't we do that? We could do a survey and hand it out at district days and get a lot of information from our people.
Right. Yeah. Good idea. Good idea. I just want to backtrack a little bit about the elderly cards. I heard that they were going to start up again. Is that true? Or
Yep, they voted to fund elderly cards and school clothes for the districts.
nice. Okay. Good timing. Good timing.
Good time.
Well, how is that in light of the current finances, though, the current revenues? Is that?
And see, that's what I was wondering. And the thing is that I 100% believe in supporting our elders, you know, and our kids. I mean, it's nice. I'm not going to lie. It really helps to get that school clothes money when you got kids in school. But I mean, is it at the expense of us going into debt? Where's the money coming from? And again, that's going to go with transparency and communication. Where is it? I mean, right now they're saying that we're in a financial crisis. We're going to have to cut. The casinos aren't bringing in the revenue that they brought before, but then suddenly we're going to spend all this money. And I mean, I just don't know where it's going to come from. And that's what concerns me.
Yeah. And it concerns me that maybe it's more of a political move than a financially responsible move.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's no coincidence that that motion was made when we're getting right into campaign season.
Right, right. So one of the last things I've been asking some of the candidates, or most of them, in fact, is about housing. And what do you think about the state of the housing on the reservation now?
Well, I mean, I feel really frustrated about it. And part of the reason, I mean, there are actually several reasons. I just think housing is such a complex issue, and there's so many different parts of it that make it work or not work. Number one is that you know, when you sign your lease at housing, because I used to live in housing for a couple of years, there's all this list. There's this list of stuff. And there's a thing in there, you got to do a background check every single year. So we had to pay, me and Alex had to pay $90 a year for them to do a background check on us every single year. And previous housing directors would say, okay, well, if you have a felony, then you can't live here. But then that kind of got relaxed. And then the other thing is that they would say they had a 3 strikes and you're out rule. So if the cops showed up at your house 3 times, then you would get an eviction notice. Okay. The other thing it says, and this goes right to my work as an animal rescuer, they say that you can't have pets in housing, but there
Mm.
are hundreds of dogs in housing. So, so all of those things, they're not being enforced. So we know that we have felons that are living in housing. We know that that the police are going to certain houses multiple times and they're not getting evicted. And I was telling you that story about my friend with the neighbor that hurls racial slurs at her from her own front yard. The cops have come there, I mean, sometimes like 5 days a week, and she still lives there.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think like we need we need we need some stronger leadership. I really do think in that whole arena we need to decide what are we going to do, and then we need to stick to it. So like a few years ago, well no, actually it was 10 years ago, um, the housing board decided that they were going to enforce their no dogs in housing policy, and so there were like 200 dogs that had to go. You know what I mean? And so
Oh,
that's how our rescue group started, is we were going out into housing and saying to them, are you aware that they're going to have a housing ban? And then they were saying they were going to send the tribal police in and to kill any dog that they found in housing.
no,
So
my God.
you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, that,
the policies are just extreme as far
yeah.
as we're going to enforce this or we're not going to enforce this.
Right,
So I just think there needs to be stronger leadership there.
right, right. Okay. All right. So we appear to be at the end. I don't think I skipped one, did I? I think
Um,
we covered them all.
yeah, I think we did.
Yeah. Okay. So it would leave some time for you to say anything that you want to about your campaign and in the coming months and what you want to do. So.
Okay. Well, I'm running for council because I'm a frustrated tribal member. I go to
Mm,
my district meetings regularly, and I have since, since I came home in 2004. And I've been going to council meetings for over a year, and it's really opened my eyes to the dysfunction in our tribal government. This administration that we're under now has seen our tribe more divided than ever. And instead of working together, many of our council members are just working for their own self-interest. And I wanted to run because I believe that I have ideas that could help start some change and change the way that we do things. Um, I know how to work with people. I know how to get things done. I've been working with some of the other candidates already, talking about some of these issues. Like you saw Gypsy Wana last week. She's very passionate about IHS. And so we have talked about that, kind of that plan. I've been talking with Lorraine Russo also. So I'm really interested in working together on different issues. Um, and if I don't get elected, I'm still going to keep working on this stuff. I'm not going to give up on, the work that we've done with the AFRES group and with the voting. I'm just going to keep working on it until it passes,
right.
because it's the right thing to do. So I hope that everyone will vote in the primaries on October 6th and vote in the general election on November 3rd. And please vote for me. And
All right.
thank you
Nice.
all for joining us during this
Yeah.
time.
Thank you. Have you gone into the community of your district and gone house to house, as they say,
Not,
or are you going to meetings or where you do meet up with your district people?
I haven't because of COVID. And
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
so
You
that's
have to
really,
wave by the end of the driveway or something.
yeah, so that's really changed the way that I think
Right.
all of us have been able to campaign, because I run for office before, and that time I did go out and visit with
Was
people.
it also for council?
It was for council, yeah.
Okay.
And so I did that before. I went out and shook hands and talked to people and had these little flyers and everything. But I mean, this time it's like kind of dangerous,
Yeah. No.
So
I
I've been
know
doing my
exactly
best.
what.
Yeah, so I've been
Yeah.
doing my best. I have a Facebook page, although I probably need some new updates. And then I've
Right.
been reaching out to individual people and families, through messages, emails, calling, stuff like that. So that's kind of, I think it's the only safe way to campaign during a pandemic.
Right, right. Okay, nice. Thanks for opening my eyes about that. You kind of forget that you can't do those things anymore, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know if this pandemic when it's going to end, right?
Yeah.
Because we're kind of at August, which is like the almost the end of the summer, and then they're talking about fall being worse. It's like, well, then it never ended. You know,
Yeah.
it kind of started in January or February, March, and it just kept going and kept going.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's been really crazy.
I
I,
know, I know.
I mean, just
And
all,
then other flus and colds are kind of interesting in that they kind of, you can definitely see a wave when everybody in your office gets sick and then it goes away,
yeah.
right? This one doesn't go away.
Yeah. We
It's
just,
just,
I think now we're at our all-time high for cases. And then, like
hmm
I said, we've had a couple deaths. And so
yeah,
this fly just driving me crazy. Um,
yeah,
so I think that, it's worse than ever. So I
yeah,
just think like, what would a second wave look like,
mm,
when we
yeah,
continually, you know, kept
right,
getting new cases and now deaths. So
right,
I can't even imagine.
right. Well, Shannon, again, thank you very much for joining us. And you've been an invaluable resource for our Off-Res group. And thank you for joining that as well. And it's been really a pleasure to talk with you again and to host this.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right. You have a good night.
You too.
All right.